So today we are taking a look at Buffy versus the World Part 2. What I did in Part 1 was take a look at Buffy versus every public domain fighter in Unmatched and go over the basics of what I think about that matchup. If you haven't seen that video and want to watch it, I will leave a link in the description. Today we are going to be going over all of the licensed characters. We'll go over these roughly in release order. The first character, the first licensed character released for Unmatched was actually Bruce Lee. Well, as you probably know, if you play this game here, Bruce Lee, the heart of his entire mechanic is going to be these Jeet Kune Do cards, the action gain ones, where he can just gain a bunch of actions and sit there and just keep punching you around like crazy. Well, Buffy actually has quite a number of ways to deal with these action gain cards. One thing you'll see with Bruce is anyone that has cancels and movement effects can stop those, and Buffy has a lot of those with 3 feints, 3 Slayer strengths, and 2 cartwheel kicks. All of these break it up, so that is 8 cards right there to break up any combo that Bruce is throwing out. Additionally, Skirmish. This will break up one of Bruce's combos for every card that he has, except for High Straight Lead, which can be a 5 if he moved in, and also if he were to put both his nunchakus out at the same time. But otherwise, we're looking at 11 cards that break up Bruce's combos there, which is quite a bit of movement. You could argue to bring Giles in on this one to stop Bruce from being able to do all of his combos, although probably better to bring Xander into this one, because I think whichever sidekick you bring in there, Bruce will likely try to start doing a chain on them and just take that sidekick out. And I think it may be better to go ahead and get Xander in there to try to put some stuff in there, because if you can pull Xander's 6s off, or even just his additional 4s, you know, against most of Bruce's defenses, you're probably going to put some damage in on him with that. The next license set that was released was Jurassic Park InGen versus Raptors. Now, the InGen set with Muldoon and his workers is an interesting matchup for Buffy, because one thing that he can really do is he can stop a lot of Buffy's mobility with these traps that he can put out there. A lot of the maps that just have the narrow hallways on them, like Soho, can really be a problem there, that he can just place traps in places and just totally stop Buffy's movement. A lot of maps where you can get a bunch of fighters around each other can work a bit better, because Buffy's cards like Slayer Strength and Cartwheel Kick will be able to hit multiple workers. Looking at this matchup here, you may be tempted to go with Giles, because you want to try to pull those call for backups out and stop Muldoon from being able to get all of his workers back. Xander may be the better play there, that gives you some additional cards with some more, and just lets you be able to put more pressure on Muldoon and his workers. You know, those extra 4s that Xander has are really quite valuable for being able to take the workers out. Now, the Raptors are actually known as being a pretty good matchup for Buffy. One reason for that is the Raptors really want to move into you, so as Buffy, you generally let the Raptors come in if they all surround you. But of course, having several Raptors surrounding Buffy is bad because of these cards. And once again, just like Bruce Lee, Buffy has a lot of ways to break up the combos that the Raptors can get going. The Raptors don't have a lot of defenses, so if you have Giles, you could start pulling defenses out of their hands, and that really does hurt the Raptors a lot. But just like Bruce, the Raptors would be very likely to just run up to Giles and try to start a chain on him, and that's going to make it difficult to be able to keep Giles around. Maybe better with Xander in this one, but I think Giles could work. The next license set released was actually the Buffy the Vampire Slayer set. And this one's a little weird in that while Buffy is clearly the best fighter out of her box, the way that these characters are all balanced to each other, they can all do decently well against her. Angel's big thing is going to be having a bunch of 5s that he can throw out there. He's got just not huge attacks, but just a lot of them, especially when you start throwing Faith into it. Faith also has 6 auto damage that she can drop into you there. For the most part, you want to feint cards thrown at you by Faith and not really the stuff thrown by Angel. And taking out Faith wouldn't be a bad idea. I think this is going to be a Xander matchup because you need to get Xander's additional offense in there. The trick with Spike is going to be to not approach Spike. Make Spike come to you. Spike only has 2 passes with Drusilla's the sight, so it's not like he is way ahead of Buffy on that. If he came in with Giles, you actually have more passes than him, and so he will have to eventually come out to you, although his health is a little bit better. And I would say go ahead and put Giles out there, and if Spike sends either himself or Drusilla out there after him, they're going to move out there. They're not going to be able to have the shadow under him right away, which is the main problem that Spike has, is that these shadows, he doesn't have a good way to put them under you unless you run up to him. And it's okay to like make attacks with Giles whenever one of them run up to you. Whenever one of them run up to you, make the attack, whether it be Buffy or Giles. They run up to hit them and then run off. Well, Willow is double ranged, which can be a problem. Whether you go with Giles or Xander, Willow will just tear through this deck. I think you've probably got an equal shot with either of the sidekicks, so whichever one you want to go with. You probably want to throw your bigger attacks into her when she is not dark, and when she is dark, that's when you want to start throwing your feints out there. Because really, if you feint her big card, she really can't do that much damage into you. The next license set that came out was Deadpool. And of course, the thing with Deadpool is that we have all this random nonsense going on in his deck. A low maximum health, although a ridiculous amount of healing. Okay, Deadpool is also a move 2 solo fighter, which means he cannot move around particularly well, so you can outrun this guy. This is one where Giles will be able to stay alive pretty easily here. If you're able to just really pressure him well, you can get into him there. He doesn't have a lot of card draw. He doesn't have a lot of defenses. He'll need to get through 2/3 of the way through the game to where he can get to this card, Dumpster Diving Deadpool, which will let him shuffle some cards back in there and get some of those better defense cards back in. He has a few good defense cards, he just doesn't have a lot of them. And just having Giles on the board might make him have to play Dumpster Diving a little bit more suboptimally. He doesn't want to keep this sitting around in his hand if Giles is on the board and can incite it away. So if this thing shows up early, he may have to play it earlier than he really wants to. And with his low card draw, you should be able to just pressure him hard enough that he's not going to be able to keep up because his card draw is really, really bad. But the next license set was another Marvel one, which is Redemption Row. And really, Redemption Row has a number of fighters in it that are honestly gonna be a problem for Buffy. Moon Knight has, like, he's move 3, good defenses. When he's Khonshu, he hits like a freaking truck. When he's Khonshu, he doesn't take any damage, so all that AoE damage that Buffy has is kind of useless, which means that something like Slayer's Strength or a Cartwheel Kick while she's dealing with Khonshu is, you know, it's not usable. He just completely negates and ignores that. Mr. Knight being able to bring up his defenses is also a problem because Buffy's offensive numbers are pretty low. But I don't know that Buffy is really consistently going to be able to dig through all of this health that he has, especially with the healing. Ghost Rider is another one that's going to be a problem for Buffy. Being able to just use the Hellfire to vroom through her, I mean, she doesn't have enough health to be able to deal with that. But if you're able to manage to keep Giles alive and pull out either a Penance Stare or a Chains of Hellfire, it's just, that would be your best shot at it there, but I don't know that you're going to have a lot of success doing that. Luke Cage, I just don't know with Luke Cage's ability that Buffy's going to be able to do much. I mean, if Luke Cage takes it completely undefended, most he'll ever be taking in an attack from Buffy is 3, 4 if you throw in Xander's right-hand man, 2 6s and some 5s, and some bunch of 4s and some 3s that can be boosted up, and he can bring some of them back, and Misty's ranged, it can do a bunch. I don't think he'll keep Giles alive to be able to pull cards out of there. And yeah, you could maybe, if you're playing with mulligans, you can try to make sure that you get an insight and be able to just drop something out of his hand right away, get rid of hope he has like a Sweet Christmas or an Impact or something that you can pull out of there right away. The next set we're going to have is the Marvel Hell's Kitchen set. Bullseye, I think, is actually one of the better Marvel matchups for Buffy. One thing about Bullseye is that with his defenses, he just kind of folds under pressure. He does not have a lot of card draw, which is what Buffy has. So I think you go in with Xander. You could grab Giles for this one and try to pull a few cards out, but I don't know what key cards that Bullseye really has that you want to get. Keep drawing cards and keep pressuring him. Okay, there's only 2 places you ever want to be concerning Bullseye. You either want to be more than 5 spaces away from him, or you want to be right up in his face. If you are not going to be able to get more than 5 spaces away, then just move right up to him, so that on your next turn you can go in there on him big. And it's good to know the maps, to know what those center points on the maps are. Those are good for you to know anyway as Buffy, so you know where the positions that you have such high boost values and movement. You want to know that anyway, but it's good to know what those points are for Bullseye, to know where on each individual map he wants to position at to be able to get the most of that crazy range that he has. Okay, Daredevil, well, he's a little bit different with the way this guy works. The recursion that he's able to get from Devil of Hell's Kitchen. This is another one that I think you've got to try to go in there and just rush him down and just, put pressure on him and take him down before he is able to get his recursion going. If he pulls off Devil of Hell's Kitchen more than, if he does that 2 times on you, I think you're pretty much done. Having Xander to be able to put the extra pressure on him would be great. You could take Giles in there and hope to be able to catch some of his breathers or devils and get those in his discard and give him one last chance of being able to throw those out there, because that's one of the big things with Daredevil, is being able to call when those are coming, because you've got 3 feints. Daredevil loves to go and throw this guy into sidekicks, and if you think that he may be throwing a Devil of Hell's Kitchen, you may know sometimes when he has it, because if he plays a breather, you'll know it's in his hand. And, he may be going up to your sidekick and trying to throw that, so you've got to do that. Elektra, well, I don't know what to tell you to do against a busted character. The whole problem with Elektra is going to be this resurrection thing that she's got going on, and that resurrection combo, which the resurrection combo, if you don't know it, is try to get these cards in here. Mesmerize, then maybe the Fist, and like maybe Mystic Assassin or something. But it's basically going to be die, come back, play, mesmerize twice, look at your opponent's hand, yank 2 cards out, gain actions on those, get out anything that can stop the Fist from being able to be recurred. So maneuver once, bring a hand in, bring Elektra in, play this, kill off a hand, recur it, play it again, run this through a bunch of times, and then eventually at the end of it, smack with Mystic Assassin. What to do on this one? Well, Electra's going to try to live as long as she can in that first life, because the longer that she can go on there and the more cards that she can pull through the deck that first time, the better off she'll be the second time, because then she can be way ahead of you on exhaustion. And as you know, that's one place where Buffy can really have a problem, is getting just having too much card draw and getting exhausted. And so if Elektra is able to go through there and play like 35 cards, I mean, you're just going to go down, even whether she pulls off the crazy resurrection wombo combo or not. So you kind of get into this weird spot where you've got to try to take her down as quickly as you can on that first life, but you may have to like draw a bunch to do that, which is kind of working against that plan, because now you're getting more cards and now you're digging through your deck and pushing yourself more to exhaustion. And also you want to have a bunch of defenses if she comes back and does the wombo combo. You do have a lot of ways to break off her using the fist a bunch of times, because a cancel or a movement would do that. But you'd have to have like several of those in your hand, because she's going to have mesmerize in her hand and she's just going to yoink 2 cards out of your hand. And so probably something like Faint, Slayer Strength she'll absolutely pull out of there, even Skirmish or Cartwheel Kick. You'd have to have at least like 3 or 4 of those on there, and you generally don't build your hand up enough to be able to have that after she resurrects, because you want to throw a bunch of cards into her to stop her from lasting a long time on that first life. So this is just going to be a really difficult matchup. This is a difficult matchup for most everybody. So, Buffy is not alone here. Next, we'll take a break from some of the Marvel fighters, and we're going to get to Jurassic Park, Dr. Sattler versus T-Rex. Well, Sattler is going to be kind of a rough one for you, honestly, because she's just got like a ton of healing in here. Just like anybody, you do want to go in there and try to take out Malcolm early, because that will slow down her insight production. You can also stop Life Finds a Way, which is a card that you really don't want to have happening in there. Not real easy for Dr. Sattler to go in and target and try to take out somebody really quick. So Giles or Xander may be able to actually hang around a while on this, and maybe you could use Giles and yoink some important cards out of her deck. It is important to remember that she doesn't have any passes, so she has no passes. So if you have Giles on there, you're actually a little bit ahead of her on that, although you do have a ton of card draw. And oh yeah, we got us Rexy here. Oh, Rexy. Just that right there, 27. It's a lot to go through. Buffy. Okay, what do you have over Rex? Well, Rex moves slow, really slow. She does have some reach, but she moves slow. You've got a lot of cards that can give you movement. So, if you end up there where Rex can smack you, you can find a way to get out of there. If Rexy decides to go after your sidekick, she can probably chomp him down pretty well. Using Giles to pull her defenses out wouldn't be a bad thing, because she doesn't have a whole lot of defenses. And most of them aren't really great. I mean, you can go into her and be really aggressive and attack her a lot and stuff, but you just don't want to end up next to her. You almost want to run away, make Rex boost into you. Make Rex boost a lot. Make her boost more than you. She's drawing cards at the end of every turn, okay? So she is going to draw a bunch of cards. So keep your hand size up. Make Rex come into you. Whenever she comes in, hit her once, and then get the heck out of there. And I think anybody can take down Rex, actually. I don't think that it's unwinnable for anybody, just because her defenses are squishy enough and she's got enough self-damage that I think anybody could do it, but you just got to be smart. Listen, make her come to you. Next, we're going to go into some Marvel fighters, starting with Teen Spirit. Squirrel Girl, just anyone that has AoE or just area of effects, is just pain for her. It takes a while for her to build squirrels up because she has to drop them in, one at a time at the start of her turn. Aside from a few cards that let her put some more squirrels out there, she really, really needs these squirrels for her effects. So when there aren't a lot of squirrels out there, you really don't want to throw your cancels. When she starts getting squirrels adjacent to you, well, yeah, that'd be a good time to throw cancels, but it'd also be a good time to throw a Slayer Strength while you got a bunch of squirrels around you. If she ever just leaves a bunch of them around you, which she kind of needs to do, she kind of needs to surround you by squirrels, and that's just like, and getting surrounded by 1 health sidekicks is just like, that plays straight into Buffy's game. I don't know if it matters if you take Xander or Giles. I think Buffy's got this one. Okay, well, Cloak and Dagger are going to have some of the problems that the Raptors have, and that both of them have a fairly low amount of health individually. So there is that. So, Buffy can try to focus on taking one of them out, because once you lose either Cloak or you lose Dagger, it's very bad for them. As far as their abilities here, Buffy does have a good bit of 4s. She does have 6 4s in her deck. There aren't a lot of things that they have in their hand that will do more than 2 damage over a 4. Really, these are the only 2 cards they have that will do more than 2 damage over a 4. The Living Light, which will be, they both have to be adjacent to the fighter for this to become a 6, and Light Force Barrage, which of course Dagger will be taking the damage that she deals out the same, so she doesn't necessarily want to do this early in the game. So even if they're throwing like commanding impacts into you, if you have 4s to be able to soak that up, you can stop them from dealing more than 2 damage into you a lot. And one thing to remember on Buffy's rapid recovery in this, that while a lot of times this essentially plays like a 4, since you gain the health at the end, it technically isn't a 4. So if you throw a rapid recovery into something like a commanding impact, that is going to be 2 damage, even though at the end of combat you're only going to have net 1 damage lost, and that will allow either Cloak or Dagger's ability to get off. Now once again, just like Bruce Lee and Raptors, you do have a lot of things that help you deal with Dagger's ability of being able to either run away from her or push her away from you. You've got 5 cards that will move her away no matter what she does. The feints don't stop it from happening. There actually feints into Dagger may end up just allowing that ability to go off. They may just run Cloak up to you a bunch of times and try to have you end up discarding from his ability a bunch. But definitely just try to focus on one of them and get them out of the, get them gone. For Ms. Marvel, remember that little hop that she has at the start of her turn, and also the extra attack range that she has. And also just kind of familiarize yourself with her deck, particularly that she has a lot of cards here. There's like 6 cards right here that base off of sharing no zones with the opposing fighter. So try to position yourself wisely so that she can't easily get that effect off. And also this one here that would, if she's in more zones than you. So just, try to position yourself well against her. She doesn't have a lot of great defenses, so if you position wisely, you can do a pretty good job against her on this. The next Marvel set will be for King and Country. Black Widow has a very interesting play style. Maria is a pretty important character in there, so you want to try to get rid of her. An interesting thing, if you go with Giles on this, is that her missions here, she only acquires a new mission if she plays this. So if you were to look at her hand and pull a mission out, she wouldn't immediately acquire a new mission. She'd have to actually draw it, you know, the old way of doing it. I mean, unless she had another mission in her hand. And she kind of counts on a lot of that damage from these schemes. So that is an option, but against two ranged fighters, I don't know how long Giles will last. But I mean, you know, just having these two ranged fighters there, I mean, not just Widow, but you got, you know, her. I mean, how do you solve a problem like Maria? Xander's additional damage could come in handy trying to take that out, but Giles could also throw her schemes out of whack. I think that Black Widow probably has the edge on this most of the time. Winter Soldier, I think you got to just try to rush this guy and get in there before he starts doing his recursion thing. One thing to remember, since all of his effects cannot be canceled, that Feint kind of sucks. Feint is a 2 boost in Buffy's deck, so that may honestly be its best use in this matchup, because being able to run around for 5 is pretty handy. So it's a good thing she's got those stupid boost values. And outside of reflex memories, which can have some nasty side effects for him there, he generally doesn't have a lot of other good defenses. I mean, he's got like 3s and 2s outside of reflex memories. You know, go in there, try to hit him hard. Might be difficult for him to run down both Buffy and a sidekick. I don't know. So Giles maybe an option there. One thing with a lot of these newer Marvel sets is that we haven't seen them as long, and we haven't had as many things tried with them, and it's a little bit harder to tell exactly what needs to happen here. Black Panther. Okay, well, just this freaking vibranium suit and being able to pull all those cards into that thing, that's just a big oof. Also, Buffy has stupid boost values, which works right into what Black Panther wants to do. If you run Giles, you can try to get cards out of their hand. If you're playing where you have mulligans, you're basically mulliganing for an insight, and he's mulliganing for a tactical remote scanning. Hopefully you get insight and have first turn, so that you can play that before Shuri can play that scheme, because just losing cards off the top of your deck hurts anybody. It's going to be bad for Buffy. Shuri is a little squishy, so running into her could be good. If you're going to go Xander, definitely try to just go after her hard and get her out of the way, so that he loses some of that healing and some of those extra cards that put cards out of your deck into that vibranium suit. But that vibranium suit is just bad news for Buffy. And lastly, we're getting into the most recent set, Marvel Brains and Brawn. Well, Spider-Man, let's take a look at Buffy's deck here real quick in relation to Spidey Sense. Well, obviously the only 5s that she has in her deck are going to be Mr. Pointies. She does have Daring Strikes, Skirmishes, Slayer Strengths that will all be 4s and kind of look the same, as well as Xander's Military Knowledge. For 3, she has the Rapid Recovery and Swift Strike. The only 2s are going to be Right Hand Man and Feint, which means it's going to be very difficult to be able to pull off a Right Hand Man against Spider-Man for a lot, because if Buffy and Xander are adjacent to each other and he runs up with a 2, they're probably going to know that it's a right-hand man, so you can't do that normal, go up there with a Daring Strike or a Military Knowledge and try to pull out the Feint and get some damage over it there. Spider-Man doesn't have a Feint, but he'll still be able to tell most of the time, if that's it, unless you start making it look like Xander's in a position to throw a right-hand man when he's actually attacking with a feint, which is something that would normally be terrible and ridiculous, having Xander attack with feints, but it might actually be a good way to pull out something there, pull out the better cards. They could do that. If you're going to use Giles, I mean, Spider-Man doesn't have a lot of really great defenses. He has a bunch of them. He has a few in there, but most of them are not all that good. It's just more, the only thing that keeps him from like dying really easily is just knowing what values are coming. So that's where if you have Xander, you have some additional 2s and some additional 4s, which can make it a little bit harder for Spider-Man to figure out what is coming their way. She-Hulk. Well, one of the problems with She-Hulk is going to be that right there, 20. I think She-Hulk's just going to go in there and just smack the crap out of Buffy with big numbers. Even with Buffy's defenses, it's going to be hard for Buffy to keep from just getting completely smacked down by all the big numbers that she has. She-Hulk has one card that can be a pass, but usually, which is leap towards, but usually that is going to be used in a manner where it is gaining an action. So she generally doesn't have passes, so that is something that can help Buffy a little bit there. She-Hulk's not going to be super mobile, being a move 2, so it could be hard for her to run a sidekick down. Maybe you could run with Giles and pull some stuff out of her hand before she's able to kill him. Just get some of the big stuff out of there. If you can pull some stuff like Savage She-Hulk out of her hand so that she doesn't have that to throw into you, that would be awesome, because a 9, that's just rough. And lastly, we have Doctor Strange. I don't know what to say. I think Doctor Strange is just going to be a bad matchup for Buffy. I don't know what you do against this guy. You can just keep healing with Rings of Ragador and bringing it back. I mean, you do have a lot of 4s that can make Ragador not win, because you do have 6 4s. And you have 2 feints, so that is 6 cards that can stop Ragador, which is, significant. So maybe you can do that enough. I think against 2 ranged fighters who've got like that much blind boosting in there. I mean, this is like an amount of blind boosting that, makes Willow look like an amateur at blind boosting. I think that they're going to just go after. I think your sidekick's not going to live really long. So, I mean, if you bring Giles in there and try to pull out some of that, I mean, anything that Giles pulls out can't be recurred with Dark Pact. So, that is something to think about. If you're able to look into Strange's hand to pull out stuff, you can make them not get that. So, that is a possibility. I think it's probably a bad matchup for Buffy, but it's probably what you would need to do to try to do well at it. So what do you guys think here? There's some Buffy strategies here that I put down that you think are completely stupid. Is there some other stuff in here that I didn't point out that you think might work? Well, go down into the comment section and let us know down there. You can also give this video a thumbs up and a like, and you can also subscribe to my channel. Make sure you catch all the videos I post so you don't miss anything.